Welcome to this episode of 3Ps in a Pod, Purpose, Pathways, and Perspectives. I have with me Kathy Townsend today. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, how are you?
Good. She's the associate producer for this podcast. And as we are just trying to put together a podcast for this week, I thought we'd focus on a perspective, our perspective on forgiveness. That's not one I had at the top of my list of what we might talk about on the podcast, but it popped into my heart a couple times and thought, okay, let's talk about a perspective on that. And what I love about when you ask me questions is that you help broaden the perspective because you're bringing yours in, because I'm no expert.
I'm no expert.
So this is not an expose on forgiveness. It's just a conversation because there's a lot of offenses going on these days in our world. A lot of reason to potentially be offended. Every one of us have had things happen to us where we have been offended at somebody or offended even with ourselves for lack of what we maybe should have done or wish we would have done or who knows. So kind of wanted to take the perspective for forgiveness on what's the goal of an offense. Because we could talk about, all kinds of different scenarios when somebody's done something that's negative towards us or we have been disappointed with ourselves. But I want to take the perspective of what's the goal of an offense wherever it comes from. If you were to take the person out of it, if you were to even remove who did it or even specifically maybe what it was, offenses themselves, when they come at us, whether it's an attack or something that's gone wrong and it comes at us, is there a goal of the offense in general that we should be thinking about when you think about getting offended and forgiving?
That's not something way that I've thought about an offense. I think of it as more inside of me, how I'm receiving something versus how it's maybe coming at me. But why don't you say more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, what I mean is when this came up, when I was talking with someone who was very frustrated and was definitely offended, and as I was listening and caring very much about this individual, I started to realize that bigger than the offense itself was what it was doing to that person. And it helped me to think and realize, wait a minute, I wanted them to begin to have a broader perspective on what was going on, bigger than the actual offense that happened. And this is what I mean. Again, removing the person who offended you or even the specifics of what's going on. Let's say there is a bigger agenda because I don't know, you have to think a little different on this one maybe to take it in, but let's say there is an actual something in the dark side of the universe or whatever that wants to get you off course in life. Let's pretend for the moment that's the case. So if there's an offense coming at you, negative things happen. When you experience bad things in life or behaviors from certain people, it can begin to change how you think. Meaning, if somebody has done something to you, you certainly can change your thinking about them, meaning, oh, they're not trustworthy. Now, that may be true, but definitely offenses can change your thinking. Now, if that happens when you're young and some important people really offend you, you are sadly being trained. Maybe all people aren't trustworthy because offenses have changed your thinking, which then changes your expectations. You may then meet people in the future and think they're probably not trustworthy because so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so weren't. So probably all people aren't trustworthy. Now, it's not only changed my thinking, it's changed my expectations. Now I expect people are probably lying to me. Sadly, a fair amount of people will. But when I've done that and I start changing my whole perspective on people, that changes my heart. Now my whole heart has a whole different belief, has a different maybe sadness, offense, expectation. But when that happens, now I've changed my future, or it has eventually changed my future. Me responding to those behaviors, which you're going to have a response, and especially if you happen as a child, how do you know? You just got to try to survive. But if it's a really negative thing or whatever it might be, over time, it can change your thinking, your expectations, which then changes your whole heart, your whole approach of things, which will change your future. You'll make different decisions because you've now learned in your perspective from what you've experienced, people are not trustworthy. So that's going to change my future.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
or we've totally disappointed ourselves. That can change my expectation from myself. Well, Lenore, you're not going to do it anyways because you failed these other times. And I begin to dislike or distrust my own commitments. I begin to think differently about me and it changes my future. I won't even try, weary of myself for the things I've done. So that's what I mean by what's the goal of an offense? Separating it from the thing, what happens if I take in these offenses and get stuck there versus forgiving and finding a way to hope that life is better than it's been so far? Some people are trustworthy, and I will find the ones who are trustworthy. I can do things even though I failed in the past. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. How you process what's coming at you, in this case, an offense, how you process that. And if you react one way, it could change your life for a negative. But if you react a different way, you could maybe change your life for a positive. That kind of what you're going at.
Yeah, and in one sense, heck, depending on what has come at us in life, you can't help but just try and survive and protect yourself and do what you can. But for me, at times when I want to grow or get to a better place in life, it's helped me by recognizing maybe what I've got in me, certain beliefs that I have that have hindered me. And I start looking at stuff and go, oh, well, I had to survive at the time when this happened.
Mhm.
I did get beliefs. I did get expectations. It did change some of my decisions, but maybe I want to change them back. And so maybe I have to go and look at those things again and say, you know what? Maybe I need to forgive myself for failures and begin to hope again. I want to not be convinced that I can't do something or find people that are trustworthy. I don't want to live assuming everyone is going to lie to me. Now, I don't want to be naive and trust everything everybody says. And you have certain personalities that are more trustworthy and others that tend to be more suspicious when they start. But forgiveness can help me get free so that I'm not hindered to get to a better life. And rather than settling into being convinced it's all a mess and I don't want to bother trying.
Okay. Are you saying that there are some things that you can do? You can forgive yourself, it sounds like. Are you forgiving yourself for believing the offense? Are you forgiving yourself for believing that just because one person or two people or whatever have offended you, that maybe all people will? What exactly are you forgiving yourself for?
Well, an example I can think of, because if you've done something to me, maybe it has nothing to do with me forgiving myself. It's about me eventually forgiving you. Maybe I was completely justified for being offended, but I decide, hey, how much does our relationship matter? Do I choose to forgive because I want to keep the relationship? And depending on what's happened, it has nothing to do with me forgiving me in that case.
Mhm.
But if I've done things like I haven't treated myself with respect, I haven't made decisions that I know would be better for me, I've opted for other things as who knows, then I would need to forgive myself if I'm actually realizing I don't even like who I am. Well, then what's going on there? And maybe I need to forgive myself because I don't want to stay in a place where I don't enjoy who I am.
Okay. So now you're changing then how you think about yourself and that you're giving yourself hope that you can do better in the future.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's all kinds of pieces with that. I think with this one, I doubt I'm going to give a whole lot of help on the process. I just wanted to talk a little bit on the perspective of if you find that you really are offended with yourself and you don't like who you are, then if you want to get on a good course to get to a better future, you're not gonna be able to do that if you don't like who you are. If you're stuck being offended with your own past, how you've wasted time, wasted opportunities, or totally screwed things up, or maybe really ruined a relationship or did something, even if you've just treated yourself poorly.
Mm.
If you wanna get past that, forgiveness is gonna be involved. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean you don't care. You may grieve over it. You may shed some tears. You may need to get some counseling, get some help to process through whatever those parts and pieces are. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's not good or bad. I don't know what you may or may not need, but somewhere in there, forgiving yourself, looking at yourself and saying, you know what? I forgive you. You may have felt a loss for what you didn't do, the way you treated yourself, anything like that. I feel like I'm being a little repetitive, but forgiving is a real choice. It's a real letting go of something,
Mm.
letting go and saying, you don't have to pay me back. I will forgive you. I will be willing to mend the relationship, assuming it's a safe one to mend. I mean, sometimes you may forgive somebody else from your past,
Mhm.
but it's not wise to stay in contact. Forgiveness
Mm.
doesn't mean I pretend you are trustworthy. It means I'm going to forgive you of the offense, but that doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily build a relationship with you. But I want to be free from the offense of something that happened in my past that changed my thinking, changed my expectations, and then changed my future. I want to get untangled from that because I want to stay on a course of a future that I want to have, or I could have. I think forgiveness helps you put your own hands back on the rudder of your ship. It allows you to say, I'm going to choose what my future is going to be. I'm not going to let these offenses forever keep me imprisoned and limited because they've taught me not to trust anyone. I don't want to live that way.
Yeah.
And so forgiveness is going to have to be a part of it.
Mm.
That even if it's just in my heart, being free from what was done, something that happened. You think of, gosh, the biggest offense I know of was, of course, I go back to my Christian faith, Jesus on the cross. Here he was literally, very purposefully brutalized and then killed by the people who betrayed him,
Mhm.
who used to be his cheerleaders and then became his persecutors and whatever. He actually says, as he's dying, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Now you think, well, wait a minute. It looks like they knew exactly what they were doing. No, they actually had no idea the impact they were doing. And he was, of course, on the cross for a whole different reason than they understood. He was
Right.
on the cross as me, as you, saying, I'll take their offense for humanity so that we can be free. It's not like God doesn't care what people have done to each other. He said, okay, this goes even deeper really fast. If you've broken a law and you're caught, there's some type of penalty, whether it's a fine or jail time or something.
Mhm.
And the worse the offense, the bigger the penalty.
Usually.
And God couldn't be a just God and say, hey, none of it matters. We're just going to forget about it all. And it doesn't matter who you've hurt. Go on, have a happy life. There are consequences. And that's the reason Jesus himself came, is to say, there are consequences. I'm going to take on your consequences. I am going to suffer in your place so that you can be free from this. Corrie ten Boom suffered in concentration camps back in World War II. And she came out of that having watched her own sister die shortly before she was released herself. And her sister was amazing. Her sister would feel sorry for her actual persecutors because she knew God's love so deeply that she could actually look at those who were doing harm and feel sorry for them and pray for them. And it impacted her own sister, who thought, how can you even do that?
Right.
But her sister, who eventually actually did die before she was ever released, she died in a concentration camp, understood something few people understand, is the deep love of God, and how she knew she was actually the person who was free. And these people were the lost ones, were the ones that had no understanding of the purpose of life, had no understanding of God. And she felt sorry for them. I had no intention of going this deep in this conversation. But Corrie ten Boom was one who did get out, eventually spoke around the world, as
Mm.
was her sister's vision, to help people know forgiveness, to help people know God's love for them. And so she, at one point, was talking to a large group of people about God's love, about value, and I don't know what else she was talking about. And at the end, one of the men who came up and wanted to shake her hand was one of the former prison guards who had actually been one of the ones who tormented her own sister and had done horrible things. And here she was talking about forgiveness and was trembling as she recognized this person who was standing in front of her. And he said, he told her, thank you so much for sharing. You know what? I've become a Christian, and would you forgive me? She had no desire to extend her hand. And she's like, God, help me. I know what you say is true. But she was face to face with the deepest wound in her life.
Yeah.
And she had to make a decision. And she said, God, help me do this. I know it's right. So by faith, basically, I'm going to extend my hand because I know it's right. And I choose to forgive. But in my heart, I can't make this different. You have to help. So that internal brief conversation, and obviously my summary of something that she said, extended her hand they shook hands, and she just felt a load come off her and a release
Mhm.
and a supernatural thing that happened because of what God did, how Jesus took the punishment of that guard on the cross. He took that guy's brutal punishment of what he did deserve for the horrific things he had done. And that's why Jesus suffered and died on a cross. He wasn't a martyr. He was a replacement for us, for anything that we have done. It's why I can look at Jesus on the cross. If I feel like I'm so stuck in hatred for someone who has wounded me maybe deeply or wounded somebody in my family deeply, how could I ever let that go?
Right.
You could actually picture Jesus on the cross and say, that's where my hatred goes. He suffered like that person who abused my family member should have suffered. He died like they should have died. And I let Jesus have paid that price, which he paid. He paid it for me, but he paid it for somebody who wounded me too, or wounded somebody I cared about. And let that wrath be poured out on Jesus, because it was poured out on Jesus for what we did, for what people have done. And then I can let him take that and then say, God, help me be free. And I don't know how to do that, without God's help, connecting those two things.
And so when you do that, when Corey Ten Boom did extend her hand in an act of faith, the pent up frustration, or that's not the right word, hatred that she had for this man and others, for what they did to her and her sister, that was released as well.
Yeah, apparently, she thought she had forgiven. I think she already had processed much of it,
Mhm.
but coming face to face with that person brought up stuff she didn't even realize was still there.
Whole new level. Yeah.
You're like, oh wow.
Right.
But she took a step of faith. And sometimes that's what you do. You're saying, God, I forgive by faith. I can't make my feelings change, but I choose to release this past offense, either something that you did yourself or release the past offense that someone did for you or to
Mhm.
you, and just walk it out. And that God, over time, you keep choosing it when it comes up. And even if it's over time, that weight, that tanglement, that hook in your heart will go away. You keep making the choice to forgive, and it's for your own freedom. Often we hold on to an offense. It's not hurting anybody but us. It's only imprisoning me. It's only changing, again, the goal of the offense. It's getting me off course. It's changed my expectations. You may go on. You may have even gone on and become a much better person. You may have just totally changed your ways. But if I hang on to that offense, it's affecting me. So forgiveness, huge reason for it is to get myself free. I want to untangle myself so that I'm not hindered from a good future. I think somehow in the invisible realms, it helps other people too if you release them. But I know it helps me.
Right. And I like what you said, that it's not a one-time deal often. It's, the
Not
bigger
if
the
it was a deep one.
offense.
You got to choose it and
Right.
choose it and choose it until it doesn't harass you to grab a hold of it again and remember all the reasons why you hate so and so or
Right.
despise yourself. Who knows? You got to
Right.
choose it and recognize someone did pay the price. He did it and he was raised from the dead because he completed paying the penalty
Yeah.
of that, whatever was done. I really thought we'd talk in general about forgiveness. I did not plan for us to go so deep so fast, but I know how powerful, how I personally believe it is. I know that it is. Hopefully, it's of benefit.
Yeah, it's forgiveness is something that I have gotten much better at over my life, over my years. And it's one thing to hear that you're supposed to; it's another to do it. And then, as like you said, a really deep offense, you're like, okay, I can forgive these 18 things or 188 things, but this one thing, I can't forgive that one thing. But
Mm.
God tells us to, for our own good, to forgive even that one thing, even the thing that was just so hard and so deeply cut you, that whether it was something we did ourselves or somebody else did, but it really does release you. It takes the weight off of you. There is freedom in that. And it's a beautiful, it doesn't make any earthly sense, but it does make spiritual sense. It does make physical sense to me personally. I have experienced it.
Yeah, I think sometimes we try to take a shortcut on forgiveness, and sometimes it's a small offense and you just go, "Yeah, I can let it go." Or in your heart somehow you're able to just release it. Other times you need to actually go, "No, this hurt me. This is why it hurt." Even if you're writing it down for yourself to understand, to respect and honor and hear how that hurt you. Because somebody may not come to you and be able to say, "I'm sorry I did this. I know it was disrespectful. I'm sorry for disrespecting you." It's nice if you are asking someone for forgiveness. "Hey, would you forgive me for how I talked to you? Say, I think I was disrespectful. I know that had to have hurt. I think my words were a poor choice. Would you forgive me?" That's really nice, and that can help someone forgive you because you acknowledged how you wounded them, how you disrespected them, things like that. But if you don't get that from somebody, maybe you can acknowledge yourself, "I'm choosing to forgive them, so I'm free." And I may need to say, "God, I felt very disrespected. That hurt me. That made me feel like you gotta be kidding me. I've done this and this and this, and you're discounting it," or whatever. All those things that are happening and we don't necessarily recognize. So it's okay to do that and or maybe grieve over it, cry over it. If tears, if they come. So I don't want to shorten the process, and I don't have enough information to give you because of my lack of expertise. But it doesn't mean it's an easy choice or that you don't recognize the impact that whatever that offense was had on you or that you had on someone else. You
Mhm.
brought this up. There is a verse, Matthew 18:21 and 22. And Peter came to Jesus and said, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times?" I mean, he's thinking he's being very generous. Jesus said, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 7 times 70." You're like, "What?" In other words, let's not give you any excuse to get bound up. Again, remember the goal of the offense. Yes, we're generous towards other people. God is generous towards us. He forgives us of stuff we don't even realize we do compared to him. We fail in our motives or words all the time. But the goal of the offense, again, is to change your thinking, is to get you to think, I don't even want to try, or to get you to change your heart, to change your future. So, for your sake, you got to keep choosing forgiveness so that you don't change your future based on an offense, the
Mhm.
goal of someone getting you off course. No, if you have to keep forgiving so that you can stay free, you stay in control of where you're going to head your life. You choose who you trust. Don't let them decide for you who you trust. That's again the reason is to be free. I certainly set other people free, but to be free yourself. And that we do need it. We need forgiveness ourselves. So we need to forgive others. Scripture says that many times. Forgive them so that your father can forgive you.
Right.
Because we so often think, well, I had good intentions. Well, maybe they did too, and they just did it in a dumb way. So we justify ourselves
Yeah.
and we
Right.
often get offended with others. So
Right. Right. And more often than not, people will not ask for your forgiveness. Maybe they don't even know they offended you, or they did and they don't care and they've moved on and you still haven't. And those are harder, but those are the ones that we need to also forgive. Is even when someone doesn't acknowledge that they've harmed you, it's for yourself more so than it's even for the other person. If they're not asking, we still
yeah,
need to do it.
different personalities will hear things different ways. Also, I think a huge percentage of offenses are actually misunderstandings. A lot of times we don't really hear each other and we get offended and don't even realize it wasn't even intentional. And then there's plenty of things that maybe are intentional. So especially be a bummer to get off course because of a bunch of misunderstandings.
Yeah,
And
that's
it
true.
wasn't even really intentional.
Right.
And then I find the more I focus on what's the big picture, what's the goal I'm trying to achieve, then I put less emphasis on the little offenses along the way. Some of those things are bound to happen. You interact with people, you're going to misunderstand each other or not say the right things, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So there we go. We talked a little bit about forgiveness. I think it's a powerful, powerful concept. Realize there can be an agenda just on offenses. You don't want to get to where tough things in life have changed your whole expectation for life. And then you start saying things and trashing your own opportunities and talking yourself out of anything good. So then the goal of bad things happening worked. It got you to think life itself was just a bummer, too hard.
Mhm.
That's not true. There's beautiful things in life. There are amazing opportunities in life, and you want to be free and get back to where you can take advantage of them, enjoy them, and forgiveness is a piece of that.
Yeah.
Okay, another nugget here. I do think there is a devil, call him what you want. There's a fallen angel that hates humanity. And I do think he has an agenda. Because he's such an offended one himself. He doesn't care who offends who. If you want to say the enemy or dark side of whatever you want to call it, he doesn't care who offends who. He just wants people full of hatred. The goal is division. The goal is dark hearts, is offended people, limited people, people who don't believe in each other, people who believe in what's not possible, people who despair for the future. It doesn't matter how we get there. That's the enemy's goal. So there's an agenda for offenses. I don't want to go down that path. I know that if I focus on enough things going on in the news, I could become fairly hopeless, fairly discouraged, very, very offended in many different directions. So I don't want to live that way. I do think that also when there's something negative, if you want to look at an enemy who has a bigger agenda, they use a megaphone. And by the way, sadly, because of the way just humans tend to work, shocking information, bad news, sadly, people pay more attention to it than good news. So they use a megaphone. And I got to realize there's not a megaphone on all the good people in our country. There's not a megaphone about every good thing happening, about every person who's quietly helping their neighbor, who is day by day, like someone like you who drives a friend to the doctor's appointment to make it easier on their family. No megaphone's been on that. That's happening all over the place. All the people who do care, all the people who love the variety of humans on the earth, which is many, many, many more than those who don't. Many, many more. But there's not a megaphone on that. There's a megaphone on the negative. And so again, the overall goal and agenda of offenses is to get people to get off course, to make them miserable, to make them more hostile, fill them full of anger. It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong about their anger. They want you full of anger. It's an ugly goal, but it is a goal. I don't want that goal. And so I have to choose what I put in my ears, what I put in my eyes, what I focus on. Whatever is good, whatever is praiseworthy, whatever is of good report, that's what I'm supposed to think on. I don't pretend there aren't things going wrong. I don't not take action. I spend a lot of my time, one way or another, trying to bring opportunity and helping other people gain opportunity at every level, or most every level of life. And I don't pretend that there's not problems. I'm trying to solve problems, but I don't want to get caught up in the agenda that shrinks my confidence and ability to make a difference, and that there are many, many more great people than negative ones on the earth without a megaphone.
Right.
So I want to be free. I want to stay free and actually be a part of the solution by bringing unity, by bringing solutions. And personally, I don't want to hear your complaint unless you're someone who's also providing a solution.
That's good.
As far as someone I'm going to actually really listen to as a voice in my life, I'm not saying I won't listen to you if you have a problem. I'm just saying for someone with a voice of authority, I like solution providers. And I believe a piece of freedom is forgiveness along the way, because there's plenty of opportunity to give that. And I want to stay free, so I'm going to choose it.
That was good.
Well, I hope you enjoyed us talking about a perspective on forgiveness. We hope that was beneficial for you. We certainly care about you. And we had fun talking to each other, Kathy, even though I did most of the talking.
Yes, that is all good. It's all, you're the one who had great information. I we appreciate it. I learned a lot.
Well, thank you, Kathy, for being here. And again, I treasure you as a person and as a friend.
And you, Lenora, of course.
Well, thank you all. Have a great week. Thanks for listening. Subscribe to the podcast. We have great interviews, totally different topics we talk about at times. So have a great week, and you matter. Take good care of you.